Hello, everyone. My name is Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach. And if you've been tuning into the show, you know one of my greatest joys is whenever I get to bring on my talented friends and share them with you. And so today is that special occasion. I bring to you my friend Danny Royce, who I know from his AfterBuzz and BHL days. You know, he's hosted a plethora of shows there. Most notably, I think we can point out Inside the Black Actor Studio. That's one that holds near and dear to his heart. And then creatively, outside of his hosting realm, he's an actor, and I actually got to work with him on my movie Idol, and we'll definitely talk about that. But to really kind of kick things off, I want to talk about a movie that's on Amazon Prime currently called Nowhere, Alaska. And, that's quite a long-winded introduction, but let's just start with, how are you doing today? How are you?
I'm great. I'm blessed. Yeah, it's great to be alive, I should say. Your opportunities are constantly coming and going. So, but I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Overall as well. I always tell people, like, under the circumstances, I can't really complain,
Right.
so it's good.
Exactly.
It's good.
I mean, you could, but who would listen? No.
I mean, we're all entitled, like, just because things are happening in the world, it doesn't negate, what's going on within us,
Right.
right? We all have our problems, and it's like one of those things you shouldn't compare yourself ever. And so, like, why compare, because you have a problem, in that sense.
Yeah. Exactly. I get it.
You know what? I wasn't gonna go there, but like, you're someone. So you're very into fitness. You're into yoga. How important is your mental embodiment of yourself towards the work that you do as a creative?
It's extremely important. I mean, the mind is everything. Your mindset is everything. And if you don't have a strong mindset and a positive perception on the world and yourself, then it's kind of hard to move forward. And that's why a lot of people lose track of their goals and kind of like the direction that they want to go because their mindset is not right. They have an idea of where they want to go, but you can't be your old self trying to do new things. You can't be that same person that you once were trying to get to new heights in your whatever it may be in your work, creatively, things like that. So when I do yoga, when I do my breathing exercises and all that, it's a way of being grounded. It's a way of clearing my mind and clearing my vision. And it's extremely important to connect your mind, your soul, and your body, because without that connectivity, something's going to lose. Something is going to be left behind. And for me, it's very important when I come and bring that to my projects because I'm able to be grounded. I'm able to put my 110% in, and I know who I am and where I want to go. And I think that's extremely important. A lot of people don't know who they are. They're still trying to figure that out, which is fine. Everyone has, different journeys, things like that, but make an effort to understand who you are and what you want and make that effort to change. I have an expression, it's called why wait? So it's like, literally, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for tomorrow that may never come? Like, we woke up today. I'm speaking to you right now. A lot of people expected to wake up today and then get that opportunity. So we are here, this moment. What are you going to do with that opportunity? Opportunities, they don't knock. We seek them. We create them. So with that change in mindset that I've had over the past 3 years has really changed my life.
Wow, there's a lot of profound stuff in there, and one of the things you mentioned, that it does help you with your work. So kind of connecting it to Nowhere, Alaska, for those who haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but to give some context, it's a thriller movie, right? We can call it that.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a mystery. It's not like a murder mystery in the classical Agatha Christie sense, but you're trying to figure out who committed the crime and what's the truth.
Right.
It's not. So as far as that, it's something to know yourself, but you're playing a very dark character that's doing a lot of questioning, but also kind of perhaps hiding a little bit of the truth. So, how do you start to embody a different person rather than yourself?
So a lot of actors, different actors have different techniques and things like that. But for me, I like to create the character that has been written down, right? So they give you this framework, right? They give you this vessel, but it's your job to actually embody the vessel and make it work towards the story, make it believable. And so for this particular character, Derek, he had just lost his wife. He doesn't know where his wife is, right? So you have that sense of losing someone. How would I feel if I lost the love of my life and I don't know if they're okay and I don't know if they're dead or whatever? And then I'm on this journey with my brother that I'm not that close with and one of my best friends, but they hate each other. So you have that conflict that you're in the middle of when you're trying to find this. And then now you have another conflict of someone trying to kill you. So, um, for me, I want to bring um, the truest aspect of Derek to life. Um, I start diving down even further, like what's his favorite color? What does he like to do? Some memories of him and his brother when he was younger? Like these are things as human beings that we have. So the character is a human being. A character has its own, own way of doing things that is completely different from mine. And so what I've also been taught a lot in classes and things like that is never judge your character. So even if you're playing, I don't know, if you're playing Jeffrey Dahmer or something like that, right? Obviously, what he did and his history is disgusting. We have all these thoughts about it, right? Evil acts, but you're embodying that character. So in their mind, they justified it some way, somehow, based on whatever traumas, whatever past, whatever they had is justified. So in that sense, you can't judge your character because then it's not believable. The audience will not believe what you're bringing to the table. And so I really like to break down my characters and the shoes that I'm filling because someone could be watching that character and they could relate to them. And that's what we do. That's why I love bringing a character to life so people can be like, okay, that was me, or I see myself in that, or I can get through that. So with this particular movie, Nowhere Alaska, he was a smoker as well. Like avid smoker, like all day, and so I actually on set I had to smoke the herbal cigarettes, which are horrible. But I'm like, I'm Derek. Derek likes to smoke. Okay. So then you change that sort of that characteristic about yourself for that moment because you're living the life of this person. And so it's so fun to step into shoes of others because as an actor, I can be a lawyer, I can be a doctor, I can be a policeman, I can be a murderer, and all these things that you can be, that's totally fun, but are they going to be believable? And that's the process that you have to take to make yourself be believable to the audience.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, you were very believable in my movie, and certainly believable in Nowhere Alaska. And
Thank
I
you.
want to deep dive a little bit because there's so many, first off, I just want to commend the movie. There's so many wonderful aspects to it. Whether the cinematography, it looks wonderful. The pacing's really well done. The score is fantastic, and there's not a lot of actors in the movie to begin with. I mean, I think a total of 5 ultimately.
Yeah.
And so, your guys' chemistry and whatnot is fantastic. How did you become involved? What was that like? How long was the shoot? I mean, it takes mainly in this wooded area of quote unquote Alaska. I don't know if it is Alaska. You can tell me that. But I imagine it was just a fun camping trip ultimately. That's the way I view it. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Let me tell you something. Okay, for it was shot in Alaska.
Okay.
It was shot in a few locations, Kenai. Um, there's another called Wheaton, and then there was another. We were in another location. I'm blanking on the name, but these are all locations like it's not toward Anchorage. It's out in the middle of nowhere, um, and it was literally to this day the most beautiful set I've ever been on. Um, the process in the beginning was fun. Like it was interesting, and this is what I always tell people: just to listen to their gut, listen to their inner spirit. Because when the audition first came out, and as an actor of color, there are things that go through our heads, when we see certain breakdowns, right? When we see things that involve like a family, and it's all ethnicities, you're like, okay, that's probably gonna go to a white family. Like you just these things are conditioned within you, unfortunately. And then you have to change that mindset that's what it's all about. So this was about 3 years ago. The breakdown said, the guy gets lost and was going to find his wife with brother and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. So I go for it, right? And I go to the audition, all that. I get a call back. I'm like, wow, I got a call back. And so it was originally the son of a son and a father and his best friend. They actually changed the dynamics of the character for me. And they brought me back, and they decided to change the story to two brothers and a friend instead of the father. And so I go in, we're doing a chemistry read, all of that stuff. My scene was when my brother dies. So having to pull that emotion, all that stuff throughout in that audition with the
Do
callback.
you have siblings? Just curious.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, I saw my closest brother. I'm like, how would I react? How would I feel if he were to die? It's morbid, I know, but as an actor, you have to embody this. So I actually saw my brother on there, played by Aaron, as my actual brother, and so that brought a little bit more realness, a little more life to the character. So so when I booked that, we got out everything. It was so communicative. I loved the crew. Everything was so great. And they flew us out. They flew us out from LA to Alaska. I believe all of us were all the actors you see on that film is from LA, with the exception of my wife. The woman that played my wife, Dora, she is actually from Alaska, and all the crew and all that. So we got there, and it was a very rainy and stormy day that day. But it was 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks of just amazing. Like I just had such a good time on set. Everything could kill you. So that was interesting. The plants, there was like quicksand underneath this river that we were told to stay away from. Our DP had to have a loaded gun on him at all times on set, just in case black bears or moose or anything like that came rolling along. I actually did get to see a lot of wildlife, which was really amazing. And yeah, it was just a great time. It was a lot of working, but then we also had moments where we could just chill and just have campfires and stuff like that, and talk about the shoot. And the good thing was, like, our director, he lived there, and so him and his folks, they would take us fishing. I went on the boat and I saw like an actual whale, like 6 feet from me, like just pop up in his eyeball. I was just like, it was it was an incredible setting. Like I definitely will always remember it. When we were filming, all of like every single set and location that we were at, we had to deal with some type of adversity, some type of challenge. It's all natural light. We were also there with summer solstice, so the sun would set at about 11 o'clock. It would go to the horizon, and then it would come back up. So the sun never went away. So that was just having to deal with that the first few days was like, okay, like I don't know what it is right now. But yeah, so it was totally fun experience. And we had to make some changes, according to location spots and just nature in general, and when I first got the script and all that, they sent these are going to be revenant conditions. This is exactly what they told us. Like, this is going to be a revenant condition. They compared it to certain films and stuff that are out. Harsh weather, bugs, animals, all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, let's go for it.
Yeah. No, that's how far away were you guys from civilization? And maybe for your own comfort, but I'm also thinking like camera wise, like charging batteries and this and that.
Yeah.
That presents a problem.
Generators were a great friend of ours, so we put it that way. We would have. There were moments we would have like locations, and then we would have home base, and then we would drive out to the location for the day and then come back to home base. There were moments where we would just camp. There was one night I slept in a tent, and yeah, it was pretty far. It was pretty far. Like, it's those towns, Kenai, and then there's no one that starts with an L. I keep forgetting, but they do have like residents that live there, but it's like maybe 400 people or population. It's very, very small. But I really enjoy like just the natives there too. Like, everyone was so nice and just very very helpful. But when we were shooting, there were literally no one around. It was just the cast and the crew. So it was a very safe production. And there are a few times where, a black bear would just, walk on by and everyone's like, okay. But, but our director is extremely knowledgeable. It's like, you can't touch that devil's club. That's, that can burn your skin. Or, like, we would look at tracks and say, okay, well, we're going to use these bear tracks in our scene because they're fresh. But because they're fresh, we're going to make sure that we're out of here at a certain time. You know what I mean? So, like, it was just really fun dealing with that. I find that entertaining, like on the edge type stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that side of it as well. And were you able to see dailies? I mean, just whether time wise or just in general, were you because I know some directors, like, they don't like to show the actors anything.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Yeah, we did. We saw, because 95% of the film was filmed on the drone. So we saw quite a bit of dailies, without obviously being color corrected on and stuff. But they definitely, kept us up to speed of what things were looking like. And
wasn't that helpful for you to see it? Because I don't know, did it help your performance? Where you're like, ooh, I should have done this a little bit differently? I'm curious from the actor perspective what that's like.
Yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes it depends. It depends on the scene. If it's a really strong, powerful, embodying scene, then yeah, I would like to take a look at it and just kind of see, the performance. But sometimes I don't. I don't really want to see, because then, you get into this state of, okay, maybe I should have done that, or maybe I should have done that. And it's like, Johnny Depp never watches his films, which I couldn't go that far. I need to see the finished product. Like, that's
Yeah.
I want to see the product, but he never watches his films because he becomes self-critical of himself. the dailies, I would love to see where am I taking it, where the story needs to go. And that's one of the reasons why I watch it. I don't necessarily watch it to be like, okay, I should have did that, I should have said that better, because that's what the director is there for. He's gonna let you know. If that's not what he wants, he's gonna let you know. So I just watch the dailies to see, like, for myself, am I taking this character where he needs to go? And so, yeah, they were very helpful in showing us that stuff. And like, we had to do some pickups, towards the end of the shoot, because, maybe,
Naturally.
something due to weather or something, something like that. We were under some harsh conditions sometimes.
Yeah.
We were under some harsh conditions, but it was extremely fun though.
Yeah, no, listen, I have to commend you actually, because not a lot of people, even like I'm talking like professionals, have the ability to kind of separate themselves. Like, I mean, you mentioned Johnny Depp, but I know there's plenty of people I work with. Like, we shot a sizzle, right? And there's we had like 15 hours of footage, and we literally just start playing like just anything, and like the camera's basically on the ground. And one of my friends is like, "Do we need to reshoot anything? Am I bad?" I'm like, "We have 15 hours. If I can't get 2 minutes together out of it, like, yeah, we have a problem. But right now, no, we don't have a problem. Like, just relax."
Right,
So,
right.
um, so yeah, it's always a very interesting experience. I want to highlight one of the things that you and I talked about before this. This is kind of us over the phone chatting, catching up. You mentioned the fog that happens in the movie. I could have, for sure, I was like, oh, they got so lucky with the damn fog. They had, they filmed it like, let's go, let's go, let's go. You guys created that.
Yes, we did.
Incredible.
We did. They had fog machines. Let me tell you something about the fog, because things don't always work out the way you plan. Obviously, from being a producer, but the fog machines like weren't working for a moment. Like the fog, it was just carrying the wrong way, and like so we had to find the right placement, how to get just enough on screen at that particular moment when we run through the woods. And so we wrestled with that for a little bit, but they were able to have the fog machine and then a fan that they were able to hook up to the generator and blow it to the direction they wanted to. And so we also had like, a few PAs running around like just fogging this, like, and then you couldn't wait too long because it would, dissipate. So after they were fogged, they were like, okay, everyone's set, and then action. But yeah, they did that. They did a great job with that too. Also, as far as like any of the fires and anything like that, it's all real. None of that is done in post. The costume for the killer or suspected killer was actually made by the director. He made that whole thing. He sewed it together. It's all real fur. It's all, as a vegan, I don't really care. But no, that was actually, I filmed this before I was vegan. But all the furs were real, the claws, all that stuff. Bones that you saw in there were real, like all that. So it was none of the props were fake at all. None of the props were fake at all, and except besides the fog. But yeah, it was really cool how they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. I love that. I mean, like I said, it blew me. I'm a filmmaker, and I was like, oh, they got lucky. They got lucky. But to pull that off, that's amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you and the team, on the project. It is available on Amazon Prime for people to check out. So I highly recommend it. But, now I want to kind of transition a little bit and talk about the hosting side before we talk about my movie, because it almost feels a little self-indulgent to talk about my movie, holding off that until the end. But, I opened up, one of your biggest prides is Inside the Black Actor Studio. And, can you, like, who are some of the guests that you just absolutely loved interviewing? What have been like sort of the hidden gems that you're like, wow, I'm so glad I did this because I took this away?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, oh my God, there's so many. I guess, starting with the base of Inside the Black Actor Studio and why it is what it is. So I definitely wanted to use a platform to inspire and motivate people of color in the entertainment industry. I was a huge fan of James Lipton's Rest in Peace, Inside the Actor Studio, and that having that ability to speak to people of color in the industry, and to saying that you can create and you can be who you want to be, without fitting the stereotype of what Hollywood wants to give you, was extremely important to me. And having some of the people that I looked up to growing up, like Oba Babatunde, Tay Diggs, Darius McCrary, being that kid, on Family Matters, that I was like, okay, that's the everyone wanted him, Eddie Winslow, to be their older brother. Like like Eddie Winslow is awesome. So just having people like that on the show it was amazing. I believe one of my favorite interviews was with Oba Babatunde. And for those of you who don't know him, please look him up. And he has been in the game for decades, and he's a triple threat singer, dancer, actor. He's won many awards. He was in Dear White People. The list goes on and on. But he talked about Dreamgirls. He was in the first production of Dreamgirls, and he talked about meeting Sammy Davis Jr. and what that meant for him. And there was one thing that Sammy told him, that always stuck with me. And he just said, he told him to keep going, but also believe in what you can do. Mm-hmm. And so if you believe in what you can do, then nothing can stop you. And that spoke volume to me. That interview was definitely one that I was just like, woke. I was like, wow. Because like everything that he talked about, his response, is so much knowledge, so much wisdom. And it really touched me. All of the interviews touched me. There were moments where, I had Tyra Farrell on, from, played Mrs. Baker in Boys in the Hood, and she was in Poetic Justice, Jungle Fever. Like, you can't really talk about Black film without talking about Tyra Farrell, because she was like that one actress that was in everything, but I felt like she was so underrated. And part of it, and she talks about in an interview, part of it was because of her dark skin. It's so real. It's, the darker you are, the less beautiful, the less attractive, the less leading lady material you are. So people like Halle Berry and I'm blanking on her name, Dorothy Dandridge, things like that. Like, they were the ones that were, in the forefront because they were lighter complexion. And so when Tyra told me that she left for 15 years and devoted herself to raise her daughter, and devoted herself along with her husband to police brutality, like she was in this game that we're doing. Like, all the stuff that's going on right now, she was fighting that decades ago. So she touched on that, and that was why she left Hollywood. Now she's back killing the game as always. But that really spoke volume to me, because it's like, it's okay to step away for a second. Mm-hmm. If something is true to your heart and you really feel like you can make a change with what you're doing, it's okay to step away from a passion, or it's okay to, just hold on for a second and dedicate yourself to something greater than yourself. And so that's what I feel like this show is. It's definitely greater than I am. It's greater than all the guests that I brought on there, because what it's teaching, especially young people of color, is that they are here because of the steps that they took, and they've opened doors for you. They've opened doors for you to step in and to create and to be unapologetically you. So Yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely commend you. I mean, you are capturing that history. I mean, in a way, like I remember I'm watching Netflix as They've Got to Have Us, and the
Yes,
wealth of history that was too. And so without being hyperbolic, I compare it to that sort of
right.
level, where you are preserving that history and so forth. And as a film buff myself, I mean, it's like all things in America. Really, we get taught a certain history, but not the other
Right,
history. And
right,
I'm someone that does pride myself on kind of trying to see, whether it's foreign movies or diversifying the filmography, if you will. And still, there was so much that I just learned from that. So it was wonderful.
yeah. And that actually I had Frederick Simon, the creator of They've Got to Have Us, on the show, and I remember having him on there. He was ill that day, but we did his interview, and the next day he flew back to London. But he was talking about some of his favorite, interviews, and on that show, having Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier, like all these people who really just paved the way. And like, there's certain things that, that you would never know because it's not taught. Like, blacks could not do their own stunt work, so they had, they had a white person doing their stunt work, but they just painted themselves. Like, it was just these things that were like, wow, really? Sidney Poitier was one of the first men of color to do his own stunt work because he refused anyone else to do it. And so when you have your power, and you know your power, you know your worth, that's when you can change the world, and that's when you can change things. So yeah, no one saw that, if you haven't seen They've Got to Have Us, definitely check that out. It was incredible work. And Frederick Simon, he talked about his background a little bit, his director, and he started off as a photographer. He didn't want to get into movies, never saw himself getting into movies, but he listened to his inner mind, his inner spirit, and that's what I always tell people to do, because it can lead you to places you never thought was possible.
Yeah. I want to make I want to get your perspective because, we keep going back to this greater than you idea. And, certainly like I've seen you very heavily involved, and rightfully so, with the Black Lives Matter movement and so forth. And I want to almost get your perspective to kind of kick it off, because I do see comparison, like John Boyega, when he was, he's screaming into the megaphone. He basically says, like, if I'm never hired again, so be it, type of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And in your own words, you seem to embody that sentiment as well. Like, there's, if I never work, like, this is greater than me, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what, I mean, this is like, whatever, to ask the lamest question ever, like, what is it? What does the Black Lives Matter movement mean to you and for you?
Man, it's extremely important to me. I'm gonna take it back just a second. I me and my family, we are very close. We have a very close dynamic. But I was raised majority of my childhood in a majority white suburb in Chicago, right? So there were some things that I didn't really quite understand, that I didn't really get at that moment. Um, there was a point where I was somewhat kind of afraid of people that looked like me, because of the lies and the stigmas and the stereotypes that I believed. So I had to do a lot of unlearning. And so when I graduated high school, I was gone. I went to school in New York. I lived in New York. I lived in Florida. I lived, in Puerto Rico. I just moved around, just taking in different cultures. I was around people of all different walks of life. And so that was extremely important to me to understand. If you're not willing to understand anything and open your mind to the possibilities that, yeah, people are different than you, but we are all connected in this one aspect, then everything's going to blow over. So the BLM movement for me is finding your pride, finding who you are, knowing what you come from. Because being Black in America it's like, okay, our history started at slavery. No, it didn't. What we're taught is our history started at slavery. No, before that, you're kings and queens. Before that, you come from different tribes, different walks of life, different islands, and that's the history that was stolen and the past that's stolen. So getting that back, that's what the Black Lives Matter movement means to me. My shirt, it says, I've been sleeping on me. Now I'm woke. I'm woke now. So it has Africa, it has a crown. Like, because for too long, people of color have been, made to believe that where they started in this country was just being a slave. We don't get taught a lot of the history. We don't get taught a lot of the richest person that ever lived was an African king. We don't get taught a lot of the contributions that were given to America from people of color. This country that was built on the back of slaves. We don't talk about a lot of that stuff. We have monuments of all these people, and like, I don't condone destruction. I don't condone looting. I don't condone violence. But when you have so long of being unheard, how do you expect people to react? When there's been so long that you've been fighting for rights, you've been marching, you've been dying. People have been dying for my ability right now to just talk to you. Like, people died for that. So when you start to understand where we've come from, you understand where we want to go. I feel like it's so important to take an action. And it's not just, and your action could be, just spreading knowledge. Your action could be going out there in the front lines. Your action could be, donating. Whatever it is, we need to take action, because we're all one race, the human race. And just because the pigment in our skin is different does not make someone better or worse than you. And it's the content of their character. MLK said all day. And one of his quotes that I really, really keep pushing. I don't know if you're aware, there was a lot of riots that happened this past weekend in Chicago. What they're going to end up doing is putting more police out on the street. That does not solve the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the lack of education, the lack of resources, the lack of, if someone doesn't have the will to live and the will to get better and the will to want to achieve, right, then you're going to result to survival. And how are you going to survive? By whatever means necessary, right? You're going to survive. Whether it's stealing, whether it's killing, whether it's drugs, whatever that is. And we need to solve the root of the issue to fund more into the people, not the police, into the people. And so those riots, one of his quotes is, the riots are the voices of the unheard. Riot is the voices of the unheard. And it's so true, because these riots don't just pop out of nowhere. No one gets up and say, okay, I'm just going to break some stuff today. It's because we've been unheard for so long. And for me, being where I am in my life right now, I understand more. I get more. I know what it is to be Black in America. I'm proud to be who I am, and that is another issue. We have so many young, beautiful Black kings and queens walking around that are not proud of who they are, because they don't know who they are, because this country has dimmed the light of who they are. And so my job, I feel, is to bring that back And that's not necessarily saying, oh, be pro-black, you're anti anything else. No, you can be pro-black and pro everything else. And I hate how people try to flip that narrative. No, that's not how it works. Just because, this situation needs help and uplifting doesn't mean you don't care about this situation. It's just that you're focusing on this to bring it to the same, same level. And so, as a long answer, that's that's my that's what I feel about the Black Lives Matter. And a lot of people, it's to me, it's crazy how we're still arguing over all lives matter and Black lives matter. It's like it's silly. It's really silly. It's a play on words. Obviously I know you where you stand, and I applaud you and I thank you so much for giving your voice and really pushing toward where we want to go, where we should go, and I from the bottom of my heart, you have been amazing at doing that. I've followed you on social media and just really being active, because that's what we need. We need that. Like, we need the help from everyone. Back then in the 60s, when MLK was really strong and doing what he was doing, who was out there marching? It was 95% Blacks. And you had some sprinkle of other people in there. Now we've got mix of every walk of life, color, race, all of that, ethnicity, marching and wanting the same thing. And that's what we need when love overcomes hate. And so that's what I pour into everything I do, into fitness, into acting, into hosting. We got to uplift, because so long we've been held down. For so long we've been in chains and shackles, and that didn't end when slavery ended. It continued in the prison system. It continued in the judiciary system, and systematic racism is alive and well. And I just learned myself a few days about sunset towns. I don't know if you heard of the sunset or sundown towns. There are actually towns in the U.S. right now where I could not go, being a person of color, and be there after sunset, because whatever happens to me happens to me. Mm-hmm. No one would ask any questions. So no one sees that as a problem. No one sees that as a problem that we need to address in this country, that there are actually places like that. 2020, there are actually still places like that. So that's what I'm here to change. And the little things that I can do every day to uplift us, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I think, speaking for white people, because that's all I can do, I think, like, A, it is our problem to solve, and B, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in all of this is that it's, when you say like sunset towns or whatever, I feel like a lot of people go to a disassociation aspect of it, of like, oh, well, I'm not like that. My town's not like that. And
right.
By saying that, it's basically like, well, it's not my problem to deal with. And it's like, it is my problem to deal with, and I hope, if anything, people have realized how close like racism is in their to them.
Right.
In their own family and within, I remember another kind of thing that I learned, and I think you touched upon this in your own way, but I was talking with my friend AJ Jolivet, who's a Marine, or former Marine rather. He's Black, and I said I said it in an innocent way, although albeit a stupid, ignorant way. Now in hindsight, I said, why don't people just move? Because I look at it like my solution, like if I really got to a place with America where I just hate it, I would move. And not that there's not racism in other countries there, of course there is, but it's like, move. And, I don't say that like viciously. It was a genuine like solution, because again, it's something that I would look to. And he's like, I have fought on behalf of this country. And when you look at the history, like we're not moving, we've done too much to move. And so I appreciate that perspective.
It's like if you build a home and then, someone takes your home and then you tell them to leave, like, no, I worked to build this home. I'm going to stay here. And the thing with U.S. that's different from many other countries, I know there's racism all over the world and colorism. But the thing that sets America different than other countries is because they did not hold up to their word. And what I mean by that is in the Constitution, all men are created equal under the sight of God. All men have unalienable rights. And if you say that, if you're going to say that, you got to hold up to your end of bargain. And that was one of the things that, was said by many leaders, decades ago, is that the United States did not hold up to their Constitution. So if you're going to say something within your Constitution, then hold up to that. But there, the whole thing around like, being a third of a person, all that stuff, is just interesting to me. It's like in the U.S. is this beautiful, big, beautiful cake, right? Wonderful icing and frosting, fruit and all this looks delicious, right? But when you cut into it, it's cement. And that's kind of like how America has been in its history, where other countries, it's like, okay, yeah, if you talk about the president, then this is going to happen to you. Or if you do this, it's going to happen to you. America's like, yes, you're free. You have freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But, so it can't be no but if you're going to tell me that, you know what I mean? So that's what separates.
I'm very curious. So I don't know if you're aware, but NPR on the 4th of July tweeted out, pretty much line by line, if you will, the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
And literally people were responding to NPR like, you socialist bastards, shove it up your ass, and type like literally. They're quoting the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
Calling a socialist liberal bullshit, like fuck commie crap. It just boggles my mind. Like you would think, like at the very least, people would learn and know what the damn Declaration of Independence at least is on the surface. So I don't know where like it just when I saw that I was like, oh dear God, we are. Where are we?
Yeah, I mean, this is, and I for one, I've learned a lot, in this movement and all that. But even before that, like I was never, I mean, outside of my teenage years, past that, I was never a fan of the 4th of July because I understand where it comes from. And yes, if colonization did not happen, you and I would probably not be here. Okay. But the thing is, like, it could have happened so totally differently. But I just feel like, that the 4th of July, that moment, we were not free. It's just the way it is. Like, yeah, you celebrate the independence of this country, I guess. But like for my ancestors, and we're not free. There's nothing to be, there's nothing to celebrate, honestly. So Juneteenth obviously is, but even then, it was 2 years later after imagine being like free, right? But you don't know you're free until 2 years later when you get that address that you're free. And then it's like, okay, well, you guys are free to go, but we're not going to give you anything or support you or do anything. Like you have someone, it's like taking a child that was dependent, that you're making dependent on you, and then just saying, okay, you go out in the world and make things happen, which thank God, a lot of people did make things happen. But for the most part, it's like, how do you expect someone to understand what's going on and how to navigate? And then you create laws to put them down and to hold them back. And then now you're saying, oh, they're lazy because they're not trying hard enough. No, it's because they're in a cage. They can't move about. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. But at the same token, people have done it before me. So I know that it can be done.
One of the questions to bring up, they've got to have us, that if I had any criticism, I don't think it was explored as well as I would have loved it, This idea that, they almost jokingly kind of said, you know, white people have been making movies about like their dogs and things like the biggest problem is the dog is lost, right? And there's this almost expectation like any black movie has to be about slavery or social movement, whatever. So I want to get your perspective as an artist, like, when you envision, let's just call it what would be, a black cast, black film, whatever. What would be the ideal? You know what I mean? Like, is it just like, yeah, there could be stories about slavery, but there also should be about, a child losing their damn dog. Like I don't know. I think it's a very interesting perspective to explore. And I want.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Being an actor of color, like you get these roles of where it's like the thug or like, the druggie or, the pimp. And those, I'm not discrediting those roles or those characters because their story also needs to be told. There are people like that. And yes, slavery films, I think we're good on it. I don't think we need any more. I mean, we got it. We got it. The one thing that, I don't know if it was Netflix or Amazon did that I didn't really care for too much was they had, during this movement, the beginning of it all that, they had sections that said hardship, blah, 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 like different movies like that. And I'm like, we don't need to see films where we are being oppressed. We don't need that right now. We need uplifting, motivating, inspiring films. We got that. We know that history. That has been ingrained in our heads since we were little. What's next? Yes, family films, showing Black families together, and it's not being a ton of drama. Showing love films, romantic comedies, things like that. I'm actually working on a pilot right now that I'm writing that has a whole new aspect of things people, you never even heard of or seen on film. And it's, based in African mythology and magic. So it's just like, those are the type of things that we need right now. I'm done seeing people getting whipped and getting sold and getting raped. Like, I'm done with that. We don't need that shit anymore. Excuse my language, but we don't need any of that. We got it. And there's been so many films made about that. And with the past Harriet film, I don't know if you've seen it, but it did not tell her story. It did not tell her story of who she was and what she meant. She was a hero. She put her life in jeopardy many, many times. But then you go and you see a movie about, JFK or something, and it's like, oh, holy be thou. Like, no, it would be like Harriet, it can't be double standards, is what I'm saying. We need to do the same thing with people of color that we do the white films. It doesn't have to be about slavery. It doesn't have to be about drama. It doesn't have to be about drugs, sex. And I get it. It happens. It's real. Especially you go to some urban places, areas, things like that. But right now in this time, we need to see things that will motivate us, inspire us, especially our kids and our children. Growing up, every Black child, I don't care where you're from, you get that police talk. And for some kids, it might be a birds and the bees talk, but for us, it's a police talk. This is how you act. This is what you say. This is how you, respond. It's that conversation that should not happen, but it's a reality. So yes, I think we need to see more stories, uplifting stories, progressive stories, and that's what I am writing right now. Those are the type of things that I'm writing on. I'm done seeing slavery and shit. I don't want to see that anymore. And we don't. If you want to see it, there's plenty to go back to. Believe me, there's millions you can watch, but we don't need to create that anymore.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I don't disagree. So, and in fact, so, to wrap things up, I mean, I would love to keep talking. There's so many different avenues, but let's talk
right.
Because, so Idol's my film, and
yes.
I had reached out to you, and you Yeah, sight unseen. I don't even think you saw the script. You were like, I'm in.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you took a big leap of faith,
Of
and
course.
hopefully it paid off. But um, in that sense, I don't know for kind of I would love to get your take on the scene we filmed. Like for all intents and purposes, for me, I had essentially just wrote a character named Mike, who was the best friend of one of the main characters, and to
Hmm.
me, he just needed to be that best friend. And
Right.
uh, I don't know for it for better or worse, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I had no like preconceived notion of who Mike was. And then I don't know, I knew you were an actor and I said, let's do it. So there's
Yeah.
not really a question there, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just if anything, talk about your experience and how that was, and because I don't even know if you knew Khalil, your counterpart in that scene before, but
Yeah.
you guys really nailed it. Like it's one of my hidden gems of the movie. I love it.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's so when you reached out to me, I mean, I obviously working with you in AfterBuzz, not like I knew your essence. I'm really good at reading people. It's like it's truly a blessing that I have that. And you have such a good energy and good vibe and about you. And so I'm like, okay, it's this project, it has to be great, because, and I wouldn't mind being in it because of who you are. That's how Hollywood runs, and that's how a lot of people get confused. It's not necessarily your talent keeps you going. It keeps you with, you have jobs because you're talented, but you get the jobs because of who you know, and those relationships. We're all human beings. If I have a relationship with you, you hit me up, I have a role for you. It's dope. Here, let me send it to you. I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna look at that before some random person calls me and says I have a role for you. You know what I mean? So it's all about relationships. We're very relation based beings. And so my job was to just bring your character to life. And I like when directors give us that room of creativity, because that's who I am. Like I left corporate America because I needed to be creative. Like I can't be held in a box. So giving me that creative room was amazing. And what do best friends do? Best friends are there no matter what, right? Best friend, you might text your best friend throughout the day. You might, share secrets with your best friend. Your best friend may know like some, about your significant other, like stories, stuff. So my thing was like, okay, what is the best friend? How is the best friend react to certain situations? And just really embodying that character and just being for him in that moment. And the biggest thing that I've learned since I've been acting is vulnerability always wins.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable actor wins. So being a best friend, being there for your significant other, your best friend, whoever it may be, there's a sense of vulnerability that happens. And that is when the camera catches it and it pulls the audience in and they believe you. Because everyone wants to be vulnerable, but not everyone makes it because of fear of what will happen or fear of how they will be perceived. So I, in that scene, just made sure, not even knowing the full script, just knowing that and being present, the most important thing for me was just being present and being vulnerable. And obviously listening to your direction. But but yeah, so that, I mean, that's basically what carried me through that scene. And Mike, that character, I knew there was so much more to him. I created, a little bit of his life just so I can have a foundation to stand on. But then, yeah, so it's you really, when you make it about someone, when you give your all to make it about the other person,
Yeah.
that's a true vulnerability that you just can't buy. You can't really find. It's rare. It's rare when I can just literally just listen to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, I think as you're as you're talking about it, I can envision it in my head because I've seen the movie so many times. And that
Yeah.
moment, Mike's character, he wants to say the truth to Caleb, but he
Right.
knows how painful it's going to be to him. And, you know, because they are best friends, Caleb catches Mike of like, you got something to say, just say it. You
Yeah.
know, that moment, it's like, well, should I? So yeah,
You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to knock someone down when they're already feeling down. But what does a best friend do? You
yeah.
gotta whip them up a little bit.
Yeah, no, and it's great. You know, obviously, like, you know, people undervalue acting as far as like it's a lot of it's also what you don't say, right? It's what you,
Exactly.
facial expressions and so forth. And so what you're
Yeah.
not saying in that scene is like 10 times more than what you end up saying, and it's
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's actually it's funny. I know we're running low on time, but this past shooting I was doing, it's for a TV pilot, and one of the comments from the director was saying, Danny, you really act with all your body. He's like, he was watching me. He's like, you're like there tapping on the table. Like he's like, you're doing a lot of things with your body that's amazing. I don't keep it, but he's like, but I noticed that you do that, and it's a lot of what you don't say that speaks volume. And then, so I was kind of like looking at the dailies. I was like, oh yeah, I do that. And it's not. I haven't been spent a lot of time in theater, but I've done a lot of like theater and then musical stuff like that. But for me, it's just really giving all of myself. Like I respect you. I respect the project. Why not give 110%?
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I always go in doing. And it's literally like, I don't care what Danny would do. What would this character do?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's truly wonderful. What you know, as we kind of get to the tail end, what are some projects that you can plug right now, and certainly feel free to plug your social media as well.
Yeah, for sure. I have another film that's on Amazon Prime called The Cry, where I play a a genius, so to speak, that is guiding this assassin through his mission. A very different role than I'm used to playing, but I had fun with it, and it was pretty funny being a comical character. I have a short film that I wrote and produced that I'm filming soon at the end of this month. And I got a couple more projects that's coming out. It's going to be pretty exciting. And this pilot that I just wrapped, keep an eye out for it because it's it's a lot of things that's happening that in the series that are not discussed and you've never really seen on TV before. So this will be fun. But you can find me everywhere at I am Danny Royce. Also, if you like to check me out in my health and wellness site as well, it's fitbyroyce.com and I am DannyRoyce.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny. And for me personally, as long as you'll work with me, I'll work with you. In fact, I'm writing something. I'm always hesitant to tell people and certainly there's friends of mine that get upset when I like just tell blindly, like without doing any sort of casting or reads. I'm like, that person is it. And they're like, you didn't even read them. But I think there's a character that would be perfect for you. The only real hesitation I have is if somehow I end up cutting him because I sometimes tend to overwrite characters just to fit in more of my friends. So sometimes just due to the script process, so some get slashed just because. But if I'm thinking this one,
Yeah, it's all about the story.
Yeah, but I'm thinking this one's staying in. So as long as you're with me, I'm there for the ride with you.
Of course, and I appreciate. Thank you once again for sharing your platform with me and having this discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and everyone, I just leave you with just continue to change the world, continue to work hard, and make things better, like one day at a time. Yeah, we can't go out there and just change everyone's minds, but we can do what we can every day to build a good foundation for our children, those who come after us, because that's literally what it's about. You know, they did it for us. Now it's our turn to return the favor.
Absolutely. And Wednesdays, right? You do kind of what do you call it? Wisdom Wednesdays or something like that?
Yes. Please check me out on Instagram. I do Wisdom Wednesdays. I drop a little nugget of wisdom every Wednesday to keep you going. I know Wednesdays for some people it's in the middle of the week. They're kind of losing that momentum. So this is just something to kind of give you that pep of the step. I also have apparel coming out. This is the first line here. And it has the names of a lot of our fallen brothers and sisters on the back. So I'm going to be releasing a new apparel line called Black Excellence. And it's just all about motivating, uplifting people. And, and like I say, I'll say again that it's not, being pro-Black doesn't mean you're anti anything else. So please stop that narrative and stop that agenda. But literally, it's all about bringing everyone together and spreading love and having good vibes and changing that mindset. It all starts here, the perception of the world. So we really do need to work into creating a better environment for ourselves. So thank you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you. And for those of you watching, listening, by all means, if you have further comments, share them, and let Danny know you want to do a part 2, because there's so many things we didn't get to.
So many more things.
So, and everything we did get to was wonderful, but then you still see like this whole pile of like mental notes. Like, oh, we could have gotten here. But so if you're curious, let Danny know that he should come on again, and I'm sure he will. But nonetheless, it feels great to be invited by the fans. So.
For sure. Thank you again, man. I appreciate it.